Hi, I'm Leslie Roberts, Assistant Vice President of Creative in Nashville. Welcome to a special installment of BMI's She is the Conversation, a project created in partnership with She is the Music. In this episode, singer-songwriters Rissi Palmer and Allison Russell come together for a candid exchange as two passionate advocates for females and creators of color. First, we have Rissi Palmer. Rissi is a chart-topping country musician who has released 3 albums to date and has toured extensively. She hosts the bi-weekly Apple Music show, Color Me Country Radio with Rissi Palmer, shining a light on Black, Indigenous, and Latinx histories of country music beyond the mainstream. In March of this year, Rissi was included in the Country Music Hall of Fame's exhibit, American Currents, State of the Music, recognizing musicians and songwriters who helped shape country music in 2020. And next we have Allison Russell. Allison is a Canadian singer-songwriter and outspoken activist. She's a self-taught multi-instrumentalist and founding member of Americana folk band Our Native Daughters, one half of Birds of Chicago, and formerly a member of Canadian roots band Po Girl. Along with being a prolific songwriter and collaborator, she is releasing a new solo album, Outside Child, this May.
My name is Rissi Palmer. I am a singer-songwriter.
Hi, I'm Allison Russell.
I am excited to be here with you on BMI's
She is the Conversation.
I've known that I wanted to sing since I was like 4. I sang Jesus Loves Me at church in the Easter program. I was hooked ever since. I was like, people clap for you and you get to stand and you get to sing and you get to wear a pretty dress. And I was like, I'm in. I love all of this. I think the person that showed me that I could not only be a singer, but I could also be a writer was Mariah Carey. I got into reading the liner notes and that sort of thing. And I really loved her because curly hair and all that. And I loved her voice. And then I realized that she wrote the songs. And so I was like, I didn't know that you could do that. I think I was maybe 8 or 9. And I was blown away by that fact. And I started trying to make my little poems and my little stories into songs. And it's because of her.
I was also 8 or 9, Rissi, when I first heard Tracy Chapman. And she just opened my world and was writing about things that were real in my life. I came from a broken home and a very abusive home. And I remember hearing Behind the Wall and just bawling because I felt like someone understood and knew that it wasn't just me that this was happening to. And that was the first kind of opening of the pathway to freedom and empowerment and understanding that I could process some of my experience and some of the things I was feeling and couldn't express, that I could express those things through poetry or through song was just an incredibly life-changing experience. And so I would have to say Tracy Chapman was the artist that let me know that I could do that too.
That's so funny you say Tracy Chapman because she's the first Black woman I'd ever seen with a guitar.
Yeah. So powerful, right?
Yes.
So powerful.
I thought that only white guys could. I'm not even kidding. I remember it being like this really, gosh, you brought up a memory. Yeah. I remember it being like this really whoa. Yeah. Wait, girls can play, Black girls can play the guitar? I had no idea. And so I remember I was like, that's kind of cool. I think I want to do that. Because I was playing the piano and I don't know why guitar just didn't click for me like that until I saw that. That's so funny. You brought up a whole memory.
I love that. Well, that notion of, when people talk about representation matters, that's what we're talking about, where your entire life, you had never seen a Black woman play guitar until you saw Tracy Chapman play guitar. And then the world was different and your possibilities opened and the horizon opened.
Wider, yeah.
Wider. And that's what we want for all our kids. We just want them to have the most possibilities.
Now I'm thinking back, I remember listening to my dad's Tracy Chapman tape in my little cassette Walkman and thinking, baby, can I hold you tonight? I was just I love that. And I remember singing it over and over again. I had no idea. I was maybe 5 or 6, but no idea what she was talking about, but still very much feeling it viscerally.
That right there. You can have no idea what someone's
Yeah.
saying. It can be another language.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it can be Tuvan throat singing and you're bawling, you know, in the middle of a sunny day at the Edmonton Folk Festival because it just connects emotionally, viscerally, even though I couldn't understand the words.
What
you know?
they're talking about.
That's it. It's universal. It transcends language. It transcends culture. It transcends background, heritage, religious belief, orientation. Everything. It transcends all the identities, and it just connects us to our deepest humanity. Performing and having that exchange between artist and audience, because it is an exchange. It's not this one-way thing, right?
No.
We know this. It's so much an exchange. It's a collective, communal. It's a communion. And it's that between the artist and the audience, and it's that between the artists on stage as well. And that's what, that is what I'm hooked on for sure.
100%. I think that's why the pandemic has been so hard.
Yeah. Part of me hopes that this collective experience, it's truly a global collective experience, unlike anything in most of our lifetimes. Maybe some people that remember the great wars might have a sense of that, but this collective experience that is uniting our planet for the first time in my life, really. And I hope is that greater empathy and understanding and connection and communication and problem solving and harm reduction can come out of this tragedy. That's my hope.
100%. I can't say it better. Like that's it.
It's interesting. I didn't really move to Nashville for the big, Nashville music industry with a capital M, capital I. I really moved here because of community that I was already connected to. And kind of throughout my career, that's been the way. I have not been very strategic, I'm afraid to say, with my career. I've been very much sort of intuitive, and so much of what has happened has just been close connections with fellow musicians. And so for me and my partner, JT Nero, we moved here because we had dear friends who were here, and we had that sense of community. We kept sort of coming to town for things like Americana Fest and just feeling like there was a whole circle of like-minded artists who were, many of whom were also raising young families and choosing to stay in the arts, not giving up on one's dream just because you become a parent. And that sense, to me, the magical thing about Nashville is it's a town built on songs. And that's an act of collective dreaming that I think is so inspiring. And I was sort of, my career has always been on the fringes of things, really. We've been very DIY with my currently I'm pursuing a solo career, but I'm a late bloomer as far as that. I started playing music professionally when I was still a teenager in the early 2000s, and I've always been in bands, and I've always been hooked on the collective aspect of this work. And everything that's ever happened to me in my career has been because of close community. Of course, creatively, work-wise, the idea of being in a town where, when you hang out, you co-write a song. I love that. I mean, I want to be writing all the time. And, right before moving to Nashville, I had actually gone through quite a severe writer's block when I first became a mom. Ida was 3 when we first moved to town. She's 7 now. And I was just blocked. And coming here and starting to get involved in more co-writing situations, having Rhiannon invite me to become part of Our Native Daughters, with Layla McCalla and Amethyst Kia, who are just 2 of my favorite humans and songwriters on the planet as well, just kind of kicked the creative doors open for me. And the writing block, that dam just broke, and it's like, I can't stop writing now. I wrote a bunch with those incredible women for the Our Native Daughters record. The kind of overflow from that project has turned into my first solo album, which I never, ever thought I would make a solo album. It's something that terrifies me, to tell my own story, in my own words, under my own name, was something that was terrifying for me. At least in my case, for my solo album, it's still very much a community effort. You know, I'm supported and surrounded. And that was what my experience of Nashville, and particularly with the Americana scene here, has been so welcoming. And, you know, Rissi, I know your early experiences, particularly with the country music industry here, were just so devaluing, you know, and disrespectful in so many ways. And I'm so sorry that you had that experience. It's just you're such a beautiful, shining, brilliant artist, and you did not deserve any of that. What I realized, you know, what's the thing that I could control? What's the thing that fed my soul the most? Well, it's writing, and you can still write. Nothing can take that away from us.
I know that in my experience, as when I first came to Nashville, I was really fortunate because I had a publisher there was one woman that was a part of the head of it, and a couple married couples and the wives, like Debbie. It was Russ Davison, Tony Hazelden, and Leslie Thomasina, who I think is Leslie DePiro now. And Russ's then wife, Debbie, was one of the song pluggers. And so it was like a family thing, but there were women very much involved in all aspects. And so as a female writer, I always felt very empowered. As a Black woman, I don't know, I think, and no one imposed this on me. I think just in the beginning, because you want to fit in and and I was so young. I was 19 when I first came. And so I wanted so badly to fit in that I stifled a lot of things about myself so that we could just speak in the general,
right?
So that it would be relatable. You know, I think back on that now and how differently I would do it if I was able to come back as, you know, like 30 something year old Rissi and come back and do it again. Yeah. But so much of the work that I do now, like with the show and with my own music and stuff now, I'm trying to do what you said. Like, I'm trying to bring context and to bring a fuller picture of history, because we accept so many narratives and we're controlled by so many narratives. Like what we spoke about earlier, the narrative that Black women don't play the guitar, or the narrative that Black women don't write country songs, or they're not interested in these things. And we've let it control us to the point where it makes us angry when someone bucks the narrative.
Yeah.
When someone shakes off the narrative. And any pushback that I've received in the last few years because of what I'm doing, because of the work that I do, and because of the stories that I tell in my music, it's because of that. It's because it challenges the narrative. And it's going to make you think about something that you don't want to think about, or it's going to make you change something that you don't want to change. And it's just now in the last, I would say, 6 years, stopped feeling like that. Mm-hmm. And it's just been like freedom. Whereas before it was just like this very pressed thing because of all these, a lot of it self-imposed. I will fully admit that. But a lot of the pressures that I felt internally and externally.
Well, I think what you're hitting on that being a token, how uncomfortable it is to be a token, to be the only one. Like, we have diversity. We hired one Black woman, you know?
And so you're now the Black authority. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not that's the problem, right? We cannot afford to think diversity means one of anyone.
No.
That's not it, right? And what really strikes me about what you're saying too is you were so young at 19, you know, to have a publisher, to be coming to this town. I had no clue at 19 that I should even have a publisher. I was a semi-feral, you know, sleeping on floors.
Yes.
I mean, you know, busking in Vondel Park in Amsterdam, like just sort of feral. That's what I would say at that age. And no clue of the industry, you know, not really at all. And I think in a way that gave me freedom as a writer, because it didn't occur to me, you know, that there was a room that I wasn't in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I didn't even know there was a room that I wasn't in. And so, and then the difference for me coming to this town 4 years ago, I came here ushered in by folks like Rhiannon Giddens.
Right.
You were another Black woman already
out.
kicking the door in, like by Yola, my dear sister Yola, who was already kicking the door in. I was never alone. And in fact, what helped me break that writing block was being in a room with 3 incredible Black women writers and communing together. And I got through my writer's block in communion with my sisters. So that is already such a different thing than what happened to you, where you got isolated as the only one and dealing with these layers of expectation or assumption or bias or, all of it, stereotype, prejudice. You know? And I didn't have to deal with any of, I was in this like healing womb with my 3 sisters. We just did that whole record like that in 4 days. But so much of it was this, I think it wasn't just me feeling that. I think all of us were, of this relief of all the things we didn't have to say, all the kind of assumptions we didn't have to push against, all the sort of surprise, like, oh, you know how to play that banjo, little lady, kind of stuff. There was a situation where Birds of Chicago is being considered by a certain label, I won't name names, and they decided not to sign us, even though they loved the record, which Joe Henry produced. It was a beautiful record that Joe Henry produced called Real Midnight. They decided not to sign the record because they already had a Black woman that played banjo on the label. So like, can you imagine that same metric being applied to white guys with guitars? Like
then there would be half of the radio would not have any music. Like, but it's so funny that you say that, because we literally just had this conversation where people are calling this time in country music right now a renaissance. Yeah. And, because of the success of Mickey Guyton and because of the success of Darius Rucker and Jimmy Allen. Yeah. And that's great. And because of my perceived success right now or whatever with the show, but it's not enough for there just to be like 5 or 6. And then it's like, okay, we're good. Everybody pat yourselves on the back. We've done it. It has happened. We have reached nirvana. Like, it's not that. Like, a renaissance to me is when there can be more than one Mickey Guyton on a record label.
That's right.
And there can be more than Jimmy and Darius at one record label, when there can be like 5 or 6. And they're all touring and they're all out, and like, and that is a renaissance. Like, that's a renaissance. Like, that's a moment. And that's a big deal. Like, that's a thing that's wonderful. And like, don't get me wrong, I am extremely grateful and humbled by and honored by every bit of attention and honor and appreciation that I am paid and that my art is paid, like 100%. But I'm not satisfied until there's not only several of everybody, that there's Latinx artists and there are Asian artists and there are whatever artists, same with
more than one
executives and with PR people and with the band and with producers and engineers and all of that, and like, and music directors, like in all aspects.
Yeah.
It's like you look around and it's a rainbow, and it's like different shapes, sizes, orientations, whatever, like it's reflective of these United States.
Yes.
So it's not enough for us to elevate 1 or 2. Like, there have to be many.
You're pushing that forward and you're ushering folks in, and you're exposing so many listeners to amazing new artists, and that is like, that's huge what you're doing. And I think that is, and I know, Yola, for example, has made a huge point of, as her, she got nominated for 4 Grammys last year. She had this amazing breakout debut kind of cycle. And one of the things that she made a priority was making sure that her openers were Black women. She took Amethyst, my sister Amethyst, out too. And she had to fight a little bit against some of her broader to do that, because they didn't understand why that was so important to her, You know, they were thinking, oh, maybe someone more famous with leverage.
Yeah.
No, it's my girl Amethyst. Like, that's what we're doing.
But that's
And
important.
of course, they sold that tour out. And
Yeah.
that is what it comes down to. It's not,
That's important.
Shannon Sanders and I have talked about this before. It's not charity.
No, it's not.
Charity. First of all, Black artists are foundational to all Americana. And when I say all Americana, I mean all American musics, all the different genres that grew up out of this incredible melting pot of these United States of America that has traveled the world and then come back, you know, being influenced by the places that it has gone. Like, you know, the Beatles being influenced by all the blues artists here, and then bringing that sound back, and all of that starts with the diaspora coming from Africa in horrible circumstances, obviously, as we all know, in chains, but coming here and bringing this music that then mixes with the indigenous music that were already here, obviously with the European influence too, but that we're foundational. We're foundational to country music. We're foundational to jazz. We're foundational to blues. We're foundational to rock and roll. We're foundational to indie pop. We're foundational to pop. Opera, all of it. We are foundational. These things changed. Everything changed with this sort of unprecedented mass cultural collision that has happened here. You know? It has changed the world, and Black innovation and creativity is foundational to that. It's this notion of the danger of the single story, the single narrative, right? There's a gorgeous, have you seen that TED Talk? Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi does. It's incredible. She's a beautiful writer, and she did a TED Talk about the danger of a single story, of a single narrative, and this notion where that becomes very rigid, and people really resist seeing and hearing beyond that.
Yeah, because this is what it is. Yeah,
what it is. But that fear can be overcome, and that fear is overcome with more narratives. Yes. More and more narratives, more and more stories. This is a value, not just to us as Black artists, but to the world. You know, that is a value, and that is a value financially as well. It's not, that's what I mean, you know, it's not charity. Shannon has talked about this. There's dollars being left in people's wallets when you don't have the full array of humanity and all the stories that are possible to sing and tell. Like, we are each the heroes of our own stories. We are sometimes the heroes of each other's stories. We all have a sphere of influence. We all have something that is worth sharing. And you don't have to be a Black woman to appreciate a Rissi Palmer song. You know, you don't have to be a Black woman to appreciate an Allison Russell song. You don't have, that's ridiculous. You know, that notion is, that would mean that I couldn't appreciate Hank Williams because I'm not a white man.
Right.
And that's absurd, patently, right? So that notion of empathy, and who has had to practice it? We have had to practice it because we walk in a world that is white and male centered, and we are Black women. So we have had to practice empathy to, you know, to feel those tears for Hank Williams or Elvis, you know, brilliant, beautiful, soulful, deep artists, you know, that I can relate to, despite not being a white Southern man. So,
funny how those narratives, because it's funny, like it only applies, the non-relatableness only applies whenever we bring in our stories. Like,
that's right.
I bring up Mickey again because of the song, because of Black Like Me.
Yes.
And there's another artist, Willie Jones, who has an incredible song called American Dreams. And it's told from the perspective of a young Black man in the United States. And I'm so thankful that these stories are finally being told in Nashville, coming out of country music. Yeah. And, you know, people can argue all day whether they think it's country or not, whatever. But the thing is like, for years, we've allowed ourselves, and I say we, I mean people of color, have found ourselves in songs like, I don't have blue eyes, but I can appreciate a song where an artist is talking about, you know, Crystal Gale, don't it make my brown eyes blue? And like all these things, like I can, and songs about girls with short shorts or girls with the blonde hair or like whatever. And like, I still can figure out a way to get in.
Yeah.
And get in and to love this song because it's music. And so it's like, if I can feel that kind of, I mean, empathy, like you said, if I can feel that sort of empathy, if I can if I can get around all these things to come to the middle and find the commonalities that we have, then like for sure you can listen to this song and you can find something that you can relate to.
Those emotions are the same human emotions. You know, they are equally human to you. Like, why can't you relate? If someone is having trouble relating because of the color of my skin or your skin, they need to ask themselves, okay, what's happening? And there's no shame in having that default that you're born into. But when the only shame is if when you become aware of it, if you go into total denial and resistance,
that part,
then it really exponentially compounds the harm, right? And so that's where we need more narratives for people to be more art, for people to build that empathy so that when the moment comes when they have to face their own internalized bias, you know, let's say bias, and I think racism, the word itself terrifies people.
Oh, it's
people are like, I'm not racist. But if you say, but are you biased? They might be like, well, yeah, okay. Because really that's what it comes down to, right? Internal, often unconscious bias. Obviously conscious too, but let's just talk the base of it, internal unconscious bias that gets reinforced all around us. And it takes constant self-awareness and self-reflection to start deprogramming that.
But I think that music is a Trojan horse in that, you know, you're sitting down and you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to listen to this record and it's fine. Or I'm just going to listen to this. I'm going to watch this play. Or I'm going to watch this movie or I'm going to listen to this podcast or whatever. And like, you have an opportunity as an artist, as an entertainment person to usher in like good idea. I mean, you have the power to do both. You can bring in like some horrible ideas and reinforce some horrible behaviors, or you can shed light on and have an opportunity to bring to the forefront thoughts, patterns of thoughts, or behaviors that are affirming and that are enlightening and that can change things like really, really seriously. Like, and I wish more artists thought about it that way, like took the responsibility that way. I just think the messages that we send out are so important, and that that we look at our jobs as not just like fun, good time, but like it's also like you have an opportunity here. Like you have a microphone in front of you. What are you going to say? What are you going to do with that? Like, how are you going to change things? Like, how are you going to make things better than you found them? And, you know, that weighs on me very heavily right now. And like, not so much when I was younger, but definitely now that I have 2 girls and I'm raising 2 girls of color. And so I recognize that privilege. And so I can either get by on my privilege and allow people to give me opportunities because I'm palatable or because I'm perceived as whatever, or I can use my privilege to get into the room and then wedge the door open. I'll speak again to the industry that I'm in. So with country music, like you could say things like, well, you know, Black people don't want to come to the Grand Ole Opry or whatever, or Black people don't want to come to my festival. So I'm not going to cater to them because I don't see them. I don't see there's a demand. I don't want to, you know, I'm not going to cater to something that I don't know is a demand. Well, you could also look at it like, what messages are we putting out that makes these people not feel welcomed?
Exactly.
What images are we perpetuating? What stereotypes, what biases are we perpetuating that makes people feel like they're not welcome? And maybe we need to fix that. Maybe we need to change that. Maybe this lineup is a bunch of dudes like with baseball caps and guitars. And maybe we can change that up because we know that it exists. We know that it's there. So like maybe we switch it up.
Like again, like to bring up Mickey because she's having this moment of finally breaking through a kind of a ceiling, a glass ceiling, being the first Black woman nominated, right? In that category. Huge. That's history. You know, of course, I wish she'd won. I'm going to put no offense to Vince Gill. I wish she'd won.
No, Vince Gill.
But it was stunning. She did win because it was a stunning
Baby.
performance that everybody felt. I was sitting at home crying.
Baby.
You know, Yola and I were sitting around the table just crying, you know, and that beautiful moment with Beyonce and Megan Thee Stallion, where Beyonce is just supporting her through being over. I mean, just these beautiful instances of, and what I loved about the country segment, Marin and Miranda knew every word to Black Like Me. They knew every word.
And they were sitting there
and
watching
they were
her.
singing along.
Whoever did that, that staging was brilliant.
Feeling it. And that was beautiful. And Mickey knew every word to their songs.
Yeah.
This is women supporting each other, you know, across colors, across every heritages, backgrounds. But not just for the sake of supporting each other, because they recognize each other as badasses, you know.
Yes,
my language.
Yes,
as fantastic, you know.
A boss recognizes a boss.
You know, they just yes. There's also no problem playing women on the radio. It's not going to send your listenership down. It's going to increase it. You know, the nonsense. What is it? What is that country music analogy? The cherries in the
we're the tomatoes.
Oh my Lord! Like this ridiculous. Like no, we're the majority of the world, and men like to listen to women too. Like it's just non-binary people like to listen to women. Trans people like to everybody enjoys listening to women too. Like you are not going to lose money playing women on the radio. You are definitely not going to lose money playing Black people on the radio. Because last time I checked, Black people traditionally throughout the history of America have made some pretty major contributions to music. You know, so like there would be no country music without Black people. Basically, I'm with you, Rissi. Since I became a mom, all I think about is I want to be a good ancestor. That's what I want to do. So now everything that I do has this added weight. And you're right, where it can be revolutionary just to show up as yourself.
Yeah.
Tell me your own story. Like what you were saying, how when you were 19 and you were going into these writing rooms as the only token Black woman in the room, that you felt the need not to be all of yourself. I've heard Mickey say the same thing, that until she wrote Black Like Me, she took it upon herself to post it after George Floyd because she felt the need to shout into that void of hatred that was going on. And this absolutely organic groundswell happened in response to it. You know, and that tells me like that is beautiful. That means
it's necessary.
Yes. You know, she knows she's not the only one because she's not the only one.
Yeah.
Feeling like she doesn't belong. And to me, what you say, no, we're not curing cancer, but writing songs isn't nothing. It's not nothing.
Yeah.
It creates empathy, telling our own stories. You don't even have to write like a protest song, right? You can just write your authentic, honest experience of something.
And
right?
it's revolutionary.
Black Like Me. And that is revolutionary, to just be yourself and to feel that your story is worth sharing, just as you are, with your curly hair and your dark skin and your experience of life walking through the world in a Black woman's body. You know, like that is of worth. Everybody's story is of worth. We need all the stories. We need them, and we need to hear them and value them. And it will change the world. It will help us heal and find solutions. That's what I believe. I'm encouraged that I've been seeing so much more conversation like this. And I'm so grateful to BMI for supporting this conversation.
Yes.
You know, and supporting writers like us and representing us proudly, you know.
A lot of times when I'm asked, like, what do I think the music industry can do? What do I think the country music industry can do? I think it's like really small things that they can do that will make a very big difference. It's just as simple as hire a person of color in your A&R department.
Yes.
Maybe a couple.
Yes.
And then you can, and then they might bring something to your attention that you've never heard of. Like all these artists that I have on my show, I find them through just social media, just doing simple research and following chains. Like, look who's commenting in the comment section and like, oh, what do you do? And what do you do? And then you end up finding these gems, like just this really cool stuff. And if I can do it from my bedroom, from my office in Durham, North Carolina, then I know you can do it from your big office with your, you know, with your paycheck and like with all your stuff. I know you can.
Yes.
So it's like taking, rather than trying to drain the whole ocean, like just take it step by step. Like it's really, it's very simple. Like you can give opportunity to the people that are right in front of you when they're right in front of you, and help them out, because like you said, it's a ripple effect.
My daughter and I watched, Kamala Harris give her acceptance speech as the new first ever Madam VP. And it was so, my daughter was like it was so exciting for her to see someone that looked like her, a woman in, the second highest office in the land. And no matter what side of the political division in this country you fall on, I hope that people can see the joy in a glass ceiling shattering, because that means a Republican woman could do the same thing someday, right? Or, it's not even political to me in that way.
No.
It's not partisan in that way.
Not.
It's a feeling that is now gone. That's been shattered. This is now possible. And every little girl now knows that's possible. And that's beautiful to me. And that's this idea, like Mickey singing on the Grammys.
I was just about to say, yes.
Every little Black girl knows that's possible now.
Yeah.
You being inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame, little Black kids, little non-white kids everywhere know that's possible, and that's just like when you heard Tracy Chapman playing her guitar, it was this aha moment, like, oh, I can do that.
And like, if I can do it, that means that you can go farther than me.
That's right.
Because like this part has already been covered. So this, you got this, like you can make it up to this point. Yeah. So like now you take the ball farther.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like. And that's what I can aspire to be.
Being oneself is paramount. But I would also add to that, find the people that see you and value you for who you are and can hear you. And if they don't hear you and see you, they're not your people. There are plenty of, maybe there's someone else's person. But when we find our communities that see us and value us, there's just an exponential uplifting and opening of possibilities, collaboration that can occur. Basically, all of the advances that I've experienced in my career have come from fellow artists seeing and hearing me and advocating to folks that can make a difference. So be a person of your word, be honest and true with those that you meet, and just keep writing, keep working on your craft. Don't ever give up on it if that's your dream.
At all times, be yourself. And all that entails. And, don't worry about if you're too much or not enough, and just be who you are and know that that's perfect. And that's exactly what you're supposed to be, because everybody in this business will try to change you and turn you into different things and make you into whatever they need you or want you to be. And it's very important just to keep in mind who you are and remain true to that.